Welcome, everyone, to the Monday Night Conscious Community class with the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy with me, Matthew Brownstein. Tonight's topic is how to make better decisions. This actually comes from our school's transpersonal hypnotherapy training, so it relates to some of the deeper teachings that we offer in our school, and therefore it would have some spiritual overtones. The class tonight is designed primarily, and if you're watching this as a video, of course, for anyone who might feel like you need to make a decision. I'll be offering 15 tips that we provide through our school in the transpersonal training for how to make better decisions, and we do it based on our life mastery course. So let me jump ahead with the slides to show you that. These are the free Monday Night Conscious Community classes, again, through the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy. You could learn more about the training, as well as where all these other classes are stored, either on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But you can go directly to instituteofhypnotherapy.com to find probably 500 or so of these classes now that have been archived. All right, so what do we know? We have a Life Mastery course. There's a workshop coming up to help you to understand the topic better. It's happening on July the 30th, and you can learn more about it again at instituteofhypnotherapy.com. The reason I'm mentioning it here is because when we talk about making decisions, we want to do it within some type of context. Jiddu Krishnamurti said all decision is the sign of a confused mind, right? So really, the model is there are no decisions to make. But why do you feel you need to make decisions? Well, we're having the human experience, and it often appears like we have to make choices. Think about if you're sitting down at a restaurant and they hand you a menu. It might be panic mode to look at 100 different food options and have no idea how to make your decision. But the truth is we have a lot of basis for how we make decisions, and really there is only one best decision, which kind of says there is no decision. But how do you choose? If you're playing chess, pretty much there's always one best move. There aren't necessarily hundreds and hundreds of moves. There's going to be the most harmonious move, the best move, or what eventually is, right, the winning move. The model, though, is if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there, right? If you don't know what you're doing for your fitness, for your body image, how do you know what food to choose? It might be based on what tastes good, right? If you're playing chess, if you know, all right, the goal is to win, right, then there's a clear objective and there's always going to be one next best move. When we're clear, when we meditate, when we're really tapped in, there tend to be really no feelings of decisions that have to occur. It's when we get caught up in our conscious mind that this becomes more and more confusing. So tonight's talk will be understanding more about who we are on many different levels. You've got a body, but does the body actually make decisions? You have a heart, you have your emotional self, but does that make decisions? Mostly, we all know we have a conscious mind, that thinker in there. That's where we usually go to make decisions. Tonight, I want to offer you these 15 tips on how to make better decisions by not turning to your conscious mind. The reason we're going to pull the rug out from under the conscious mind is how many times has that mind been wrong? Right? How many times have you been wrong? How many times have you thought something but realized you didn't have enough information to even make a decision? Your conscious mind comes up with a judgment and you realize you didn't have a perspective to actually judge properly. So we all know how to make decisions by thinking and thinking and thinking, yet there are other ways to get clear. So one thing is to become aware of what is your yes. How do you know when the feeling is just yes? It's beyond just your conscious mind. You can practice that now by discerning. So think about something, and I hope tonight, if you're in this class, you're watching this recording, you're thinking about decisions you have to make, right? Should I go in this direction? Should I do this? Should I attend this school? Should I open my private practice, right? We offer these classes to largely support our hypnotherapy students and graduates, right? So if you understand this idea of a yes, it becomes so much easier in our profession when you're working with clients or however you're using these teachings to know, that's the way to go. So discern, is it a yes or no? One way to know that it's a no is it just feels really wrong, right? Should you put your hand on a stove? No, painful, right? Before you even do the action, before you even consider making a choice, imagine swallowing the idea, visualize the idea, right? So you think about like really extreme situations. I'm going to put my leg underneath my car tire and let somebody run over it. All right, well, you're not sure if you should do that or not. Okay, so visualize it, like get the picture in your mind, but then feel how your body feels. So it's not about thinking here to understand when is it a yes. Visualize the choice as if it's already so. I'm thinking of going to another country. Okay, visualize that. And then you check in for the felt sense around it. Right? When it feels like a yes, things tend to open up. When it's a no, things tend to contract. But what things? What's actually contracting or opening? So tonight, before we get into the tips, we'll go into the chakra system, which again relates to teachings in our clinical and transpersonal nature of our training. A lot of you would be familiar with the chakras, but I'll give a brief overview so you can understand how we're using it in this model. There are 7 main chakras. Like I said, tonight I'll give 15 tips. So 7 of those relate to the actual chakras. The yes feeling is when a chakra opens, right? So go to your heart, that's Anahat chakra. That's the symbol you see on the screen. It's the essence of all the work that we do, the heart. Go to your heart and then just think about if I said to you something like, you're worthless. I'm not serious here. But if I said, you're not going to amount to anything. I don't think you're even a good person. You're certainly not intelligent. What would happen in your heart if that was seriously said to you, right? It would close. It would lock up. It would feel bad. Essentially, that's your inner guidance system saying, no, right? Doesn't feel right. Now, just because something opens our heart, it doesn't mean we go with it. Making decisions, especially when they're really big, isn't just that, oh, this feels good. So stick with the whole talk, because in the end, you realize you really don't have to know all 15 tips once you get a basic sense of really understanding who you are and how you're wired. And if this is new information for you, then, awesome. So how do we know when it's a yes? If I say something like, you are love, your true nature is peace, you are worthy and deserving of happiness and success. How do you know that that's true? How do you know that's a yes? It happens in a millisecond, in a nanosecond, right? Like beyond your conscious mind's ability to even think about, is that true or not true? You just know it's true. There's ample evidence now saying that when we make a conscious mind decision, it was already chosen in the subconscious. You think, I'm going to go I'm going to go have a brownie. Before you even had the conscious thought, your subconscious, very much associated with your heart, was already moving you in that direction. Now, again, should we have the brownie? Well, if you swallow the idea and you think, that feels good. Brownie seems like it would taste nice right now. It makes my heart feel open. That's kind of a yes feeling. It's not necessarily enough to make the decision, because we have in the emotional heart an inner child, right? And if you imagine you have a 5-year-old living inside of your mind, living in your subconscious, you don't want a child running your life. So decision making is based on understanding who we truly are and what our bigger vision is in life. But hold the idea of that yes feeling as we move on. Knowing this bigger sense of who we are, where we're going, and again, we'll relate this to the Life Mastery course to a degree tonight. Tip number 1, know thyself, right? It's the pinnacle of all wisdom. Everything you've ever heard from any deep philosophy always comes back down to understanding, well, who are you? Jumping ahead to an answer to that question, let's just say everybody has to have some basis of answering that question, but not everybody has the answer to that question. Those who tend to answer that question with authority is those who know, those who speak with confidence about this topic, say, you are spirit, you are love, you are peace, you are one with all that is, you are a divine being. Now, if that's your understanding of who you are, right, or anything like that, that you're inherently good, then all decisions would have to be in alignment with that. right? If I think I'm only a body, then what are my decisions based upon, right? Everything that a body would need to be okay. But if I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, it changes my entire perception. So, tip number one in making good decisions, ask the question before you even say, well, should I have that brownie or not? Right? Say, who am I? Right? Should I become a hypnotherapist or not? Well, I don't know. Well, who are you? Right? If you're a tadpole, maybe you shouldn't go through hypnotherapy training. Maybe you shouldn't be seeing clients. If you're a 5-year-old, maybe you shouldn't be seeing clients or whatever, again, you're thinking about for your decision. But if you know you're a spiritual being having a human experience, if you have any belief, even if it's not knowledge, but just a belief that you came down here with a mission and a purpose, then understanding what to do is intimately connected to that. So number one, really meditate on and contemplate, who are you? Because if you think you're something you're not, then decisions are usually always fraught with some type of illusion, delusion, or error. Next, tip 2, know thy mission. So again, if you work with the premise that you're a spiritual being, then you don't always have to just turn to your conscious mind to figure out what to do. Those of us who do feel that we have a mission, a purpose, a dharma, right? Dharma meaning, in Sanskrit, the word means duty. Like, what is your duty? What are you meant to do? In Hinduism in the early days, but even still now in the caste system, if you're born as a warrior, what's your dharma? Well, you're meant to fight battles, right? If you were born as a merchant, or your father was a merchant, you're meant to be a merchant. I'm not saying that's a good system, but that's where the word comes from. Deeper than that, like what caste were you born into? The more modern understanding of dharma is what is most appropriate, what is most harmonious, right? What's harmonious for a spiritually aware human being? What is harmonious for them to do, right? If you feel like I'm just a body and I'm gonna just, go out and fight battles or do like really big aggressive things, it would completely change, right, the way that you're thinking about what you're going to do. But if you say, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, this body is only a vehicle, and I am going to make all my choices in alignment with my mission. I'm not going to waste any time at all. There's a beautiful story from Rumi. He said a king sent another man to a country to perform one specific task. The man goes to the other country, right? That wasn't even a decision, right? He was just told to go, and he goes. He performs many, many tasks, but not the one the king told him to do. He's building monasteries and ashrams and hospitals and libraries. He's doing really good stuff. But then he comes back to the king years later, and the king says, how was your trip? Oh, great. I did lots of things for you, great king. I did them in your name. I built monasteries and hospitals, etc. The king said, yes, but did you do what I asked you to do? Well, no, but I did all this other good stuff. You didn't do what I asked you to do, therefore your mission was in vain. So if you know that you have a mission, then everything you do must be in alignment with that, because if not, you're off track. You get lost. You lose the path, right? There is a path. In Neil Donald Walsh's books, Conversation with God, Neil Donald Walsh said, I think it was the intro or an interview or something. He said, after having these revelations, the Conversations with God materials, he said, now I know there is a path. He said, I'm not done with the path, but at least I know there is one and I'm on one. One of my first philosophy teacher in college, I said to him after graduation, I saw him and I said, I just want you to know you changed my life. It was so amazing learning philosophy from you and learning how to think and whatever I said. But his only words to me were, stay on the path. And that stuck with me, right? There's a path. So there is a path. If you don't know there's a path, it seems like there's hundreds of decisions to make, maybe even every day. If there's one mission, one purpose, one dharma, one thing that's most appropriate for you, then all you have to do is do that or do things in alignment with that, right? Why would you not eat the brownie? Well, because in my case, I'm a teacher, I'm a role model, I'm a facilitator, I lead a lot of different branches of my company, right? But as a role model, I'm not going to eat that brownie because I want to show people what it's like to live a healthy, conscious life. Or I might choose to eat the brownie anyway. But the point is, outside of the brownie idea, if I know I have a mission, I'm going to do everything in alignment with that. All right. Number 3, and this again can relate to our Life Mastery course. The Life Mastery course helps you to know what is your mission, and then to know what are your life principles, or simply stated here, what are your values and your priorities. So I'll list some of my life principles now, and then you get a sense of, do you have these? If you don't really consider taking the Life Mastery course training, it's very interactive. It's a workshop. We'll be working together, helping you to achieve success in every aspect of your life. So helping you to come up with, what are your main life principles? What are your values? Some of mine are truth, service to others, silence, solitude, simplicity, respect for others. So my principles are very much rooted in taking a lot of time in silence and solitude. That might not be your thing, but you come up with, what are your principles? What are your values, right? Integrity, compassion, kindness to others, humility, right? These very high ways of living our life, high ways of thinking. If you haven't written those down yet and gotten clear, like, what are your morals? What are your ethics? What are your values? If you don't know what those are, when you're confronted with a decision, right, like maybe I should go rob a bank, well, check with your values. Is it in alignment? Right? No, therefore don't do it. It didn't give you the yes feeling because it didn't line up with your values. But where, again, is that feeling? That's going to relate to the chakras. To know, okay, I'm being asked to start a certain business with someone else. Okay, let me check with my inner being, my whole being, which we'll be talking about tonight. And does that align? Because my values are deeply programmed in using hypnosis, using affirmations on a daily basis, really, on a daily basis, it's almost impossible to go against that. So if somebody said, would you like to start this business with me? I can swallow the idea, and my inner programming will cause a response to say, oh, nope, right, that didn't feel good at all. It gave me that no feeling. But it's not just no based in my heart. It's no based in my entire being. Who am I? What is my mission? What is my purpose? What are my values? And then that's just a little bit on that. And then what are my priorities? Next on the screen there. My priorities, your priorities aren't, well, let's say most people's priorities aren't necessarily consciously mapped out. Here's a brief example of clear priorities. For me, spirituality is the highest priority. It gets a lot of my time each day. Meditation, yoga, prayer, study, doing A Course in Miracles, super high priority. Next, my mental and emotional health, super high priority, right? If the mind isn't working well and the emotions are a mess, right, you're not going to be doing all that well in life. Another high priority is your physical health, your body. If you honor the highest priority is you, your spirituality, your mental emotional health, your physical health. Now, if that's programmed in, when it's time to make a decision, or it seems like you have to make a decision, does it go against your priorities, right? If a friend says, hey, do you want to go spend a week in Cancun? Well, that might be a big yes on some levels. But does that have anything to do with your mission? Is that in alignment with your values, right? Traveling during a pandemic or boarding more fuel when we have a major crisis on the planet right now of climate change, like maybe your values tell you, you know, as nice as the beach sounds right now, it goes against certain values that I have, right? So getting clear on values and priorities. But let's go back to priorities. And should you go to Cancun? Well, perhaps you'd say, well, you know, it's going to be good for my spirituality. It's good for my mental, emotional health. It's good for my physical health. So again, having only a few data points is not necessarily enough. So I'm giving 15 tips. So once it's all said and done, we have a better understanding of making decisions in a very holistic way. because it might actually to say, well, Cancun seems to be good for my spirituality, my mental, emotional health, and my physical health. But it goes against certain values. The idea, if it's a no on any level, then pretty much you want to understand it's a no, right? If it's a yes across the board, everything in you, everything we're going to talk about tonight says yes, then generally you go with it. And a major tip that's not on the PowerPoint here, it's a teaching from the Bhagavad Gita. I believe it's the core teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, a major Hindu scripture that says, surrender the fruits of your actions to God or to higher power. So don't be attached to the fruits of your actions. Act for the sake of action, right? So when you do something, you're not necessarily expecting a result. You're doing what in Zen you would just call pure action, what the Buddha called right action. Right action is very much when our individual separate self is out of the way. You just know, oh, this is my mission, this is my purpose, this is what I'm meant to do. Therefore, you do it. If the king sends you to the other country to do this one task, you just do the task, but you're not concerned with the outcome. Your goal is just to do the task. Okay, so on the slide anyway, spend some time getting clear on your values, your life principles, and your priorities. Other priorities to get clear about, your career and finances, right? So maybe the trip to Cancun is not in alignment at all with your career and finances. Another major life category, your relationships, right? You have children, but your friend just asked you to go to Cancun, but you can't bring the kids with you. They're in school, right? You don't want them on a plane right now or whatever. So it's easy to be able to say no to something when we have clear priorities, but we need to go through all of our major life categories and put them in proper perspective. Again, this is the plug for the Life Mastery Course Workshop, because a lot of people haven't done this, and it's extremely valuable to take time to get super clear in your priorities. Okay, next. Tip 4, stop relying only on your conscious mind and learn to listen to other sources of information. I like to just call these data points, right? When making a decision, there's lots of data that we can take in, and if we don't know how to sort that out, then it can seem a bit overwhelming. But it's really only overwhelming to our conscious mind. So when you're up there thinking, right, I gotta think this out, that's one way to make a decision. Your conscious mind is a problem-solving intelligence, right? It's going to try to think about what to do. However, it can learn to listen to other advisors. And these other advisors aren't necessarily external people. So how do we train ourselves to not turn to our conscious mind as the only source of data? Well, number one, realize there are other options, all right? And that's largely what the rest of the tips will be about. But learning to drop out of your conscious mind. There's a technique we teach in the school called focusing by Dr. Eugene Genlin. He looked at thousands of therapy sessions and figured out which ones are successful and which ones are not. What's the one common denominator? And he realized that when people, clients, patients especially, function from their body felt sense, when they speak from a place that isn't their conscious mind, they tend to have really good sessions, right? If you go into a therapy session and all you do is talk from here for an hour, and the therapist just matches you at that level, you don't really accomplish much. Major profound change really just doesn't tend to occur. When you speak from your felt sense, right? This makes me feel like this. I'm thinking about this, but it makes me feel this way. Learning about the body felt sense is super important. We teach this in the advanced section of our hypnotherapy training. And then we implement it into all of our protocols so that when you're sitting there with a client, helping them through an issue, which is essentially some level of decision making, right? Helping them to determine, like, what are your goals? I know you feel this way. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be? Learning to listen to that felt sense within a hypnotherapy session or in your life, to not just go to the conscious mind story, but the feeling around it is an extremely valuable data point. But again, that's only one leading to a discussion on the chakras. One tip about get out of your conscious mind, learn to find your felt sense. But the body is relatively big, right? From tailbone to the crown of the head, you got a lot going on in there. And every level of that, from tailbone to crown, can be a data point, right? A part of your being telling you yes or no. But it really can be that simple. When you get 100% yes on all levels through all data points, pretty much do that without attachment to the outcome. Just surrender your personal self, surrender your conscious mind, and realize the whole universe, every part of my being and everything internal and external is saying yes to this. That's why there's no decisions to make. But understand the chakras can be super helpful. So tip 5, learn to listen to your chakras. So what are chakras? Simply stated, they are energy vortices. The word translates as wheel. They can be considered as energy transformers within your own being, not necessarily physical, or really not physical. Consider them energetic, part of your energy body, your energy being. Depending on where you're at with your journey into these type of things, you might not believe in a spirit or an energy body. Then consider chakras just to be areas in your body with a significant bunching of nerves, a nerve bundle, right? A nerve plex, your plexus. So you have a solar plexus, your heart as a nerve plexus. All of these areas feel something, communicate something. So we can feel the chakras in our bodies, but the chakras are not considered to be the body. Being energy transformers, they're said to step down the infinite energy of God, goddess, all it is, the infinite energy of source, right? There's a lot of energy in the universe. If you tried to plug that into a light bulb, it would blow the light bulb. If you try to put your body directly into that source, it would just explode. It's like jumping into a sun, right? And the sun is a very small part of the entire universe. So there's an enormous amount of energy. And the chakras, in a sense, are like energy transformers. They step the energy down so it can be manageable to let your body function. Think about like a nuclear power plant. You couldn't just plug a light bulb into that type of power. They're energy transformers that they send the energy along the wires, and then they keep stepping it down. When it gets to your house, it's usually in the United States, like 120 volts. And then you can plug in your light bulb. So your body in the first chakra is the bottom of that. It's like the light bulb. It's the final recipient of all the energy coming in. So the first chakra relates to our body level. It's at the tailbone, and it relates to issues of food, shelter, security, clothing, and money. Because it's really all about security, right? Is my body going to be safe? Is my body going to survive this? Will I have food, shelter, clothing, money, right? So as you get a sense of first chakra and what it's all about, if you think you have a decision to make, you could ask the question internally, like your conscious mind can be part of this experience of making deeper decisions. Ask, should I go to Cancun? Well, check with the first chakra. Does it light up and say yes, or does it say no, right? So first chakra, should I go to Cancun? And then that area of your body, literally, you can feel can lock up or it can like soften and open. You can feel when it's a yes at that level. So let's say money is tight for you and you're just starting a new career. You don't have a few thousand extra dollars to spend on a trip to another country. And being on a plane right now, it isn't all that safe. And right, so you just take in on the first chakra level, should I go on this vacation? And then things start locking up. Remember, you can override that. Your conscious mind can say, oh, no, everything's going to be taken care of. God is in charge. And I'm going to get that inheritance when my parents pass away anyway. Or, you can make up a lot of stuff in your head about why it's okay to take unnecessary risk now. But if your first chakra is saying no, right? If that level of your being is locking up, if that chakra is closing down, chakras never close 100% or you would die. So when people say your chakras are closed, what they essentially mean is they're blocked, right? But if you keep making decisions that are adharmic, not in harmony with who you are, you could absolutely be closing or blocking your chakras. Right, so simply stated, and I could talk about each chakra for hours, You can focus on that area of your body or in the tailbone region, realize it deals with basic security, and then ask the question, should I do this? Now, the word should can be an issue too when you're asking these questions. Should is often an inner critic word. It's an inner parent word, and life isn't necessarily based on shoulds. So you might ask, is it wise to? Not do I want to? Not should I, right? Because the wanting part of you is your inner child. That's a data point, but it's not the only data point. Again, you don't want a 5-year-old running your life. You also don't want your inner critical parent running your life. So when you're asking questions about should I do this, you might reframe it to, is it wise to go to Cancun? Now, if the first chakra says like, yes, I've got the money, I've got the time, it'd be good for my spirituality to spend time away. Like if that part of your being is giving you a yes, then honor it as one data point that said yes. It doesn't mean you're going to Cancun. It just means that seemed to be harmonious. Think about starting a new career, right? Does that help you with your security? Well, yes. Like what if you can make an extra $100,000 per year, right? How does that feel to your first chakra? To know like all my bills are paid, to know I don't have any debt. Like how does that feel on that level, right? Food, shelter, clothing. Will the extra money provide a beautiful house for you and your family? Right, that feels right. Again, it's only one data point, but first chakra, security, specifically food, shelter, clothing, and money. All right, so again, we can only talk a little bit on each one, but a lot of this talk is how to make decisions based on the chakras, and you can obviously keep learning more about the chakras in many other ways. Second chakra, tip number 6, making decisions based on this data point. Your second chakra is in the region, again, these aren't physical, but in the region just below the navel. And now the first chakra is like the bottom of a tube, so it doesn't have a front or a back. But your second chakra does have a front and a back. It has just below the navel in the front and kind of the sacrum in the back. All right, but either way, that region of your body. This chakra predominantly deals with pleasure, not just sexuality, but very much sexuality, but pleasure in general. And because every decision shouldn't be filtered through sex, right? Then you want to just consider second chakra is pleasure. A lot of people consider second chakra to be creation. I disagree with that. You might say it's procreation because it's dealing with the sexual organs, but creation is a much deeper concept beyond what's happening in those lower chakras. So really for second chakra, the best that I've come up with for what is that all about, it's about pleasure. Okay, so it would be going to Cancun. Is that pleasurable? Well, it's not just the trip, right? It's not just when you're there. Visualize going through customs. Visualize standing in the airport wearing a mask, right? Imagine the entire trip. Is this pleasurable? Is it worth the pleasure of getting to the destination? Right? Maybe part of you's like, yeah, it's going to be worth it. That's going to be so wonderful. It'll create great memories. But if that part of your being is like, this is much more uncomfortable than it's worth, then there's another data point. Again, you don't make a decision just because it might seem uncomfortable, but ask yourself, does this enhance my pleasure? Because it's only pleasure or pain. And no sane person chooses pain unnecessarily, right? If you go into a movie theater, if the cushions on the left all have needles in them and the cushions on the right are nice and plush and comfy, no sane person sits on the left there, right? Nobody sits on the needles. So if you understand what is pleasurable and what is painful, realizing putting your hand on the stove, painful. Okay, so we don't do it. Putting your leg under the car tire, painful. So we don't do it. Again, there's no decision to make. We just have to understand, oh, okay, now first chakra, this makes me feel secure. Second chakra, this makes me feel pleasure. Okay, then we're on the right track, right? Finding new relationships, going on new adventures, all can be very pleasurable. So it's kind of giving you a yes, right, at that level. Remember, this isn't just cognitive in your head. It can be very somatic, very visceral. Feel in your body, because you do have chakras, whether you believe in them or not. They believe in you, whether you believe in them. You have chakras, and they do tend to contract and expand based on the thoughts that you're having. They are a really powerful source of guidance to say, is this harmonious? Chakras are not physical, which means they exist in many ways beyond time and space. So the deeper we go into this understanding, we are tapping into a wisdom that isn't just of the body as we're considering these teachings. So would it be wise, not should I really, even if I say that again, it's not do I want to, it's not should I, it's is it wise to? Is it wise with my whole being to follow a certain path? Okay, that's a little bit about the second chakra. Again, we only have so much time. So third chakra, above your navel, below the sternum, so your solar plexus, basically. You can figure out where that is. Your solar plexus does have a front and a back as well. And that region deals with personal power, right? So when that, and that's a bigger chakra, and it's very much your gut, right? So does it feel good in your gut, right? Does it feel good in your heart? Your heart is your fourth chakra. But this region below your shoulders, above your waist, you can really feel those. It takes some experience to start feeling first and second chakra. But you can certainly say, does this decision bring me security? Does it bring me pleasure? Third chakra, does it enhance my personal power? What does that mean? Does it raise your self-esteem, right? If you go to Cancun and you come back feeling like, that was such a waste of time. I blew lots of money. We went gambling there, and I really blew lots of money, and I ended up getting sick, and it was just totally not worth it, right? Did that raise your self-esteem or lower it? If you're considering a certain career, does it raise your self-esteem or lower it? If you're thinking of being in a relationship with someone, does it make you feel good about yourself, or do you feel like I'm only being with this person because I'm lonely or whatever, right? You can make decisions based on low self-esteem. So decisions ideally are based on high self-esteem. You value yourself highly. You have confidence. You're self-assured. You're secure within yourself. Any decision needs to enhance that. So again, those words are high self-esteem, secure within yourself, confident, self-assured. If what you're deciding increases that, like, wow, that makes me feel good about me. Like, I've done a lot of different things in my life that I won't list, but like, I'm proud of, using the word pride loosely there, not egoic pride, but like, wow, I'm really glad I did that. I feel good about that. I like that on my resume, right? What you want, a decision you made on your resume to be able to tell a potential employee, or let's say at the end of your life, you stand before God. I'm not saying that's how it works, right? But imagine you at the end, somebody's going to say, how'd you do? Well, that decision I made really made me feel horrible about myself. You wouldn't want to share that with your creator or something like that. Then don't do that. Okay. So again, we could spend hours on this, but third chakra, feel in your body. Does it lock up? Does it make you feel worse about yourself? Or do you feel like, yeah, that's the direction I want to go? In conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh said to the higher voice, isn't life a school? And God said, nope. And he's like, really? I thought like we come here to learn lessons. God said, nope. And he's like, really? That's what everybody teaches. And the higher, wiser voice in the dialogue said, you go to school to learn something, implying that you're lacking something. But when you were created, you were taught everything, you were given everything you needed. You already know everything. So Neil Donald Walsh said, well, then what is life about? The higher, wiser voice said, it's for you to recreate yourself in the highest, most glorious way you can imagine, right? So you don't have to learn that you are love. You already know that in your core. You don't have to know that peace is valuable, right? You already know that in your core. So you already know what you need to know. The question is it a direction you want to go that makes you feel good about yourself and raises your self-esteem? All right, next, your heart chakra. The heart chakra deals with love. So when you go to your heart and ask the question, is it wise to do this? Do you love brownies? There's a channeled entity named Lazarus, and he said, you don't really love things at all. You can like them a whole lot, but you don't love them, right? You don't like love Haagen-Dazs. You just like it a whole lot, he said. Love is a different way of being, right? We can like someone, we can love someone, we can respect someone, but they're three different things, right? I can like you and love you, but I don't respect what you just did. Or I can love you, but I don't really like or respect you, right? So ideally, it's all three. You like it, you love it, you respect it. And whether it's an it or a person or an event. But the heart chakra is really a pretty easy one because you can really feel when it opens and closes beyond just your conscious mind having to think about it. So when you say, all right, in my heart, when I think about going to Cancun, how does that feel? And it's like immediately you're like, I'd be leaving my kids. I love my kids. I don't want them to not have their parent here. Then no, right? Then it's just a no. Now, if it's a no on any level in any one of these data points, essentially just be willing to say it's a no. Because some part of you, not necessarily, we'll talk about this tonight, not necessarily like an inner sub-personality or a part, like we call them sub-personalities, parts of your psyche. There can be parts that have objections to what is actually really dharmic and harmonious. But we'll talk about those in a moment. This is saying if your heart of hearts, that chakra, the essence of your being, if it closes down over something, it's most likely a no. It doesn't mean you might not stop contemplating the thing. But again, if you're getting a strong no feeling in there, then essentially just don't go in that direction. Again, that's based on love. So is it wise to do this certain thing? Like think about hypnotherapy as a career, right? Does that nurture love? Can you love yourself for knowing that you're truly helping people? Right? Yes. Can you love, like in the most professional way, can you love your clients? I love this profession, love helping others, love being of service. Yes. Does it enhance the feeling of divine love, or at least like agape, brotherly, sisterly love? Is the decision making your heart feel like, wow, yeah, that is the right direction to nurture the most important energy of love? Or is it closing you down in that direction? In A Course in Miracles, there's only two emotions, fear or love. Fear is of your ego, which means it's going to be a confused mind, and it contracts. Love, which is of spirit, is an expansive energy, and essentially it's always leading you in the right direction. So the idea of following your heart is usually a far better piece of advice than following the dictates of your conscious mind, right? Remember, we have a conscious mind up in the head, and we have a subconscious mind very much at our heart. Now, again, we've got to acknowledge there's parts in there. There's an inner child in there. But I'm saying, we'll get to that in a moment. When your heart is just really clear, then when something locks that up, that's a big indicator. Just don't go in that direction. Now, some things that life is asking us to do, like the king sent you to that other country, but you're scared. You're scared to do that one task. That can absolutely lock up your heart. This is where that focusing technique by Dr. Glennon comes in, is super valuable to be able to learn to ask questions of this and to receive answers. So if it locks up, you can say, what's your story? What are you all about? And then receive an answer from it. There is mind here. Anybody who says there isn't mind in your heart doesn't know what's going on. You absolutely have a mental part of your being residing in your heart. It's a very emotional part of your being. It could very well be scared of a certain decision. So knowing that there are 15 or at least 7 data points that we're working with here tonight says, okay, well, the way my heart is responding to this is a data point, but I can discern, is my heart just afraid of something that would be really wonderful? Or am I legitimately locking up over this? Like if somebody said, the guy who mows my lawn, I'm into archery, and he saw the target on the lawn that fell over, and he picked it up for me. And he said, what do you shoot? And I'm like, the target. And I'm like, oh, he means, what do I shoot? I said, oh, I don't hunt. And I try not to go into these conversations with these people about like why, but I'm vegetarian and I'm not going to be out there killing the beautiful deer that are up here, around my home. So if I thought about going out there and I don't even want to think about it and shooting, I want to cry just thinking about it, shooting a deer, my heart freaks out about this idea. That's a no. For me, that's a no. Maybe for somebody else, it's a yes. If I had to kill something to eat, okay, maybe it'd be a yes. But when I know I can have plant-based foods, for me, it's a no. Okay, so again, not to be in any one topic or be preaching any one vegetarian type of theme, but if your heart says no to something, just honor, it's probably a no. However, take a moment to ask, what's your story? What are you all about? Right? And if like my inner child in there is like, I ain't killing nothing. I'm like, okay, I hear you. Great. But if he's like, well, I want to do it, but I'm afraid. Okay, well, that's something else. And then we can go into working with the inner child to get that part to feel comfortable doing what's wise and what's harmonious for oneself and others. But again, usually killing, not what your inner being says yes about. Next. Tip 9, learn to listen to your chakras, the 5th chakra. This is at your throat, the throat chakra. It deals with the energy of expression, right? Is this decision helping you to fully express who you are, right? When I realized hypnotherapy was a career, it was a federally acknowledged occupation, like, oh my God, I've been looking for this my whole life. I can express myself in this career. I can speak my spiritual truths. I can use my words to help others to heal. I can tap into other people's minds and transform them. It was such a huge yes the moment I realized this is actually a profession or an adjunct to a profession. Because I was in Chinese medical college at the time, and that never gave me 100% yes. But once I found hypnotherapy, it was like, yes, right? And a lot of that had to do with expressing my deeper truths. My core mission statement, personally, is to offer the world through loving service the wisdom and truths I've discovered over the years. That's the first part of it. For me to offer the wisdom and truths I've discovered. Hypnotherapy turned out to be a great way to do that. So ask yourself in any decision, is it letting you express yourself, not just through your voice, right? Let's say you're a dancer and somebody says, hey, we've got this new thing going on. You get to dance and perform, right? And you're like, wow, I get to express myself. Then it's a yes on that level. Now you need to check on all levels of your being, because while your throat might be saying, whoa, I get to express myself through my dance or my art or my poetry, whatever, all 6 other chakras might be locking up and saying, yeah, but that's just not the right thing, or not right now, right? Remember, if you get a no, it's probably just a no. But anyway, this region of your being deals with the ability to express not just your voice, but all of who you are. And if it's helping you to express your dharma, your mission, your purpose, then it's most likely a yes. 6th chakra, your third eye region, and just like all the other chakras except for 1 and 7, tailbone and crown. Those don't have a front and back because they're the top and bottom of the tube. But your heart has a front and back, and your throat, front and back. Third eye, also front and back. Your forehead, but also the occipital lobe. You don't really feel that much there, but you certainly can, right? You can get headaches. You can feel tension in your head. But this is going a lot deeper. The 6th chakra deals with vision. Not your physical vision, because the deeper teachings say your eyes actually don't see, right? My grandpa frequently would say, I see, said the blind man. He was a really wise person. And I think he was working to teach us something there. I see, said the blind man, that the blind can see in the sense that they see their inner imagery, right? If I say, do you get it? You're like, oh, I see what you're talking about. You're not talking about your eyes. In A Course in Miracles, it says, above all else, I want to see. See is not physical. It is an extremely valuable faculty of your soul, right? The ability to see, to be a visionary. So what are we talking about seeing here? Ideally, your vision, your mission, your purpose, because once you know that, you make all decisions in alignment with that. So that's really what seeing is largely about. Seeing your purpose, seeing your mission, seeing your vision. That's big picture, but you can see on many different levels and many different many different ways. One thing to understand about sixth chakra is it aligns with your intuition and that deep sense of insight that we get by taking an inner journey. So if you stop and you go inside for these big decisions, you put your attention higher up, you go into this space and you ask, okay, should I go to Cancun, or is it wise to go to Cancun? Well, if I think about that for me in my life right now, it gets an immediate no, because it has nothing to do with my life's vision, right? My life's vision would consist of waking up and meditating, doing yoga. Today was on the elliptical glider, working with my staff, working on different projects. Nothing in my vision of the day or the week or the month has anything to do with going to a foreign country right now. So therefore, it's an easy no. If you're very clear on who you are, what your purpose is, what your mission is, what your values are, what your priorities are, then you see your life clearly. When other ideas come in, and I can tell you, for me at my stage of career development, I have meetings, like, I don't know, 10 meetings a week usually, and I'm always getting presented with new people with new ideas. And it's usually really easy to be able to say no when I need to say no, because a certain idea, like people ask, hey, can I work for the company? Can I get a job? And because I'm so clear on our organizational chart, I can see that. I can see, no, we don't need that position filled right now, right? The vision is a huge guiding point to be able to make decisions. Okay, and next, seventh chakra. This deals with your connection to spirit. This is the crown of the head, and it is really the most important way to make a decision. If you use the term Holy Spirit, and a lot of people don't, so I'll give you other synonyms for that. Your higher, wiser, divine mind, the voice for God, your higher self, the oversoul, whatever you would call it. I promise you, in case you're on the fence about this, that voice exists, right? I know when I hear that voice, as opposed to my conscious mind or any of the lower levels of my being. I know when it's my inner child. I know when it's my inner parent critic voice. I know when it's my inner adult. And I know when it's the voice for God. Now, that voice doesn't necessarily tell you, do this, do this. Sometimes it does. Yet that is absolutely there. So the only thing I can say about that is, if you go into pure consciousness, you go very deep in meditation, there's really no decision to make at all, because essentially you're transcending time and space in that highest chakra. And that which is beyond time and space could care less about decisions, because it doesn't have to decide anything. It doesn't have to do anything. But we're doing the human thing, and it seems like we have to do. The idea in A Course in Miracles of the Holy Spirit, it's the part of the divine mind which sees the illusion of time and space, but doesn't really believe in it. But it can still advise us about it while not being caught up in it. So simply stated, and again, we spend hours on this topic, learn to listen to your higher self. It's only one data point, and I often leave it as, not in my own life, but let me say it this way. In hypnotherapy work with clients, I'll often leave it as the last data point to tap into. Why? Because when you're so clogged up, so cloudy, so confused, you can't hear that voice. So if we're helping our client to decide what to do with their life, but they are terrified, don't go to higher self first. Use hypnotherapy to clear the fears. Once you're in a space of love and not fear, then you can go to spirit and say, all right, should I do this? Or is it wise to do this? And you will get a clear yes or no from that space. And it's just going to confirm with the rest of your being, whoa, yes, I'm meant to do that. So that is there, but realize when the lower levels are all blocked and cloudy, you might not even hear it. In hypnotherapy, we teach the only way to superconscious is through subconscious. The only way to superconscious is through subconscious, meaning you have to go through the shadow, through the blocks, through your challenges, and then on the other side is the light, which has the answer for you. But realize there could definitely be blocks to the awareness of love's presence, or blocks to the awareness of that higher, wiser voice. But that's what seventh chakra could be considered about, even though it could be considered a lot more as well. Tip 12, understand your parts or sub-personalities. Realize you're not alone in there. And I don't mean you have entities latched onto your system. Those would be other data points we're not going to talk about tonight, ones you probably aren't going to listen to. But what I'm talking about tonight about you're not alone in there is you have other parts of your being. You might have the part of you that doesn't like brownies, and then there's a part of you who likes brownies. Those parts are in conflict with each other. Because you've got one part on one hand that wants this and one part that doesn't want that, you're confused, right? Remember, all decision is the sign of a confused mind. You shouldn't have conflicting parts. The brief talk about what to do with this tip is honestly get good hypnotherapy that does parts therapy so you can integrate those parts. You can use parts therapy to help clients make decisions because we put you in hypnosis. We'll bring in a few of the parts that need to talk it out. I had a client, she didn't know where to go to college. I could go to Brown, I could go to Duke, I could go to Yale, whatever. She had like 3 different colleges. We brought in those parts that would represent those colleges and let each one talk it out. And sometimes it's as simple as a red flag or a green flag in there. Okay, for this college, is it red or green? All right, and then that part might show red. Okay, that's just a visual image that pops up. But then we could talk to the part. We can say, why? Why red? Well, because I'm afraid. We need to discern, is it spirit or is it ego? If the part is afraid, it's coming from ego. It doesn't mean you're going to go to that school, but this part of you is afraid to go to that school. It's coming from ego, not from spirit, and we need to transform that. Once that part is back in touch with who you truly are, the parts start integrating. Then simply stated, when all parts are integrated, there are no decisions to make. The choice will be glaringly, obviously clear. So like I said, this isn't a complex talk when it's all said and done, because once you're whole and open and clear, there are no decisions to make. So it seems like, God, I got to consult 15 data points. No, you just got to get your system open and clear. How do we do that? Meditation, yoga, hypnotherapy, breath work. All right, there are techniques that we can use to get into alignment. Once you're in alignment, then you'll know when things are out of harmony with that alignment. A lot of your sub-personalities, depending on how much inner work you've done, could be very out of alignment with you, the whole of who you are, right? So all these scared inner children inside of you could absolutely be sabotaging your life, right? Fear is ruining, I remember a spiritual teacher of mine, he said, fear is ruining your life. Okay, so every time you bring in a sub-personality, you say, well, what's your story? What are you all about? Tell me why you don't want to do this. Just realize when they're fear-based, they can be transformed, reintegrated, and then you can bring the question in again. Say, now is it wise for me to go to Cancun? And that part's like, well, that feels great, but no, because, right? Because now that part is speaking from a sane, clear, logical, rational space while in alignment with spirit. All right, so it's a little bit on that. Tip 13, ask others. So, a lot of us do this, but just as a reminder in a talk that's based on using your internal being as a frame of reference, it's fine to go outside of yourself and ask others. But here's a quote that I live by, and it needs an explanation. I'm the master of my own life. I am my own master. What does that mean? In my business, I don't research the competition. I don't care what anybody else is doing out there. I know my mission. I'm going to do it. I am doing it. It doesn't matter what others do or say. I program my clients and myself with this idea. I am immune to the judgments, opinions, and negativity of others. I really don't care what you think, right? I'm going to do my thing because that's my thing. It's my dharma. It's my purpose. However, if you're in a place where you feel like you have questions, you're not in a place of certainty and authority and then going out to others, absolutely valuable. I have a board of advisors. I have consultants. I work with very high-level business consultants. There are many things that, that we just don't know. So if I'm not sure, absolutely being willing to ask a friend, a family member, a colleague, a professional, or doing surveys. We did a survey about our conference that we had in May, and we got some feedback. And I was like, oh, my mind did the best it could. My staff's mind and our presenters, we did the best we could. Conference attendees had some other ideas. Wonderful, right? We integrate that in. So realize when you're making decisions, just in case, you're panicking and thinking, oh, it's, really bad news. Reach out, ask other people for help. It becomes a data point, right? So, I'll ask my parents, what do you think of this? If my mom or dad say, no, that sounds like a bad idea, they're really healthy, sane people. So if they're like, that doesn't seem good, then most likely I'm just not going in that direction. So absolutely consider other people's data points valuable. But in the end, we always come back to ourselves and say, does that speak to all of my chakras? Does that align with my vision, with my mission? Does it speak to my values? Right? I've, growing up, seemed to have higher values than my parents in some ways. My mother asked me to pick up a penny one day, and I'm like, as a kid, and I'm like, but it's not mine. I had inherently higher morals than she did about not taking something that wasn't mine. So if someone else tells you, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, again, check in with your inner being. All of those levels: mission, purpose, priorities, values. One of our classmates said on a breathwork session, I think I discovered what the higher consciousness feels like. Okay, beautiful. Good. I had a client once, he was going through some powerful inner work, and he said, wow, now I know what I am, that which I am means. In the Bible, that's what God said he is, or she is. He said, I am that which I am. Until you have direct experience of some of this stuff, you really just don't know. But yeah, beautiful. Glad to hear that. So breath work tends to clear our emotional blocks. And in the clarity, when you're not filled with the fear and all that stuff, then the answer tends to be very easily there. All right, wonderful. Next one. Tip number 14, divination. Things like tarot, I Ching, or astrology. Just briefly, before I get towards the end of time, I'm not saying these things give you answers directly. I'm saying you can use them to check with your own inner guidance. So let's say you pull a tarot card and you get the death card. Well, does that mean doing the thing you're going to do means you're going to die? Does it mean you're going to go through a major transformation? It doesn't mean anything, right? It's a Rorschach test. You might believe more about these topics than what I'm saying here, and I respect that. I'm not covering everything about these topics, but they're worth considering only because they cause you to listen to your own inner guidance. In Conversation with God, in the beginning, one of the books, it says, how does it go? It says, this book is about helping you to listen to your inner guidance. It says, if you agree with what's in the book, great. If you don't agree with what's in the book, great. Because either way, the book caused you to listen to your inner guidance. So that's what it comes down to. Any good teacher will teach you to listen to that voice of higher wisdom within you. So if we take that as the basis of what good teaching is, to teach you to listen to your own inner guidance, then if you're going to pull a certain tarot card or something, or you throw the I Ching and you get this pattern and you check in what the book says, and the book is like, oh no, that's a no. That's fine. Okay, it said don't do it. Just like your mom and dad may have said don't do it, right? Or your siblings or your husband may have said don't do it. Fine. But check in with your own inner guidance. And if, your whole being is saying, yes, this feels right, and then the I Ching or your astrology reading for the day, your horoscope says don't do it, it doesn't mean you don't do it. It can actually serve great contrast. So if you open the Sunday paper and you look at the horoscope, I wouldn't base my life on that. But if I decided to look and see what is Sagittarius supposed to do for the day, and it said you should stay in your house and not do anything, but my whole inner being was excited to go on this trip, the fact that I had a strong negative reaction to what I read actually is an indicator of, oh, good, that's wrong, I'm correct. Or if it said don't go, and I'm like, oh, good, because my inner being was telling me I probably shouldn't go. It just helps to give contrast to what your inner guidance is telling you. All right, so that's a little bit on how you can use those things. I don't believe that if you just throw random dice or pull a random card out of a deck, that it's telling you what to do with your life. But if you really get, and I work with some of this stuff on my own, you just get very quiet, you meditate, you get clear in the question, You ask the question, you do whatever the divination technique is. And I'm not saying, again, it's predicting your future, telling you what to do. It's just in that moment of when you're really subtle and quiet and you get a certain card out of a deck and you just look at it and contemplate it and be with it. And then you're just saying, how does that match up with what I already know internally? Then it seems to be actually a valuable process. All right, and number 15, take time to meditate, to look for signs, to slow down. And when you don't know what to do, don't do anything, right? If you're not sure what to do, sometimes, time is, you have to make a decision. But until you have to make that decision, if you're not sure what to do, the best piece of advice, my mom actually used to always say this, like, if you don't know what to do, don't do anything. In A Course in Miracles, it says, I need do nothing. I mean, thank God, right? Like some higher, wiser voice, which I believe A Course in Miracles is certainly higher and wiser than most of our conscious minds. That major teaching in there is, I need do nothing. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, which I mentioned earlier, it teaches nobody cannot do anything. All action has to occur. And therefore, that teaching is surrender the fruits of your actions to spirit. Just act without attachment to the outcome. But again, the whole discussion tonight, or the talk, is about what's motivating your decisions. If you're not clear, just stop and sit. What happens when you learn to meditate? You keep learning to let go, right? Just don't move your body and just sit there and breathe. And then you'll have all sorts of thoughts and all sorts of feelings. If you really feel like, oh God, I don't know what to do, just keep sitting, getting clear. Remember, when you ask a question, your ego is almost always the first to respond. What is your ego? It's a confused mind. It's a deluded mind. It's a mind that feels separate. It's a fear-based mind. It's a defensive and attacking mind. It's really very lost. There's nothing really beneficial about this idea of ego. But remember, when you ask a question, it's pretty much always going to answer first. So should I do that? Or do I want to do that? Is it wise to do that? Watch how your conscious mind starts doing its talking thing. When you sit and meditate, just keep letting it go. Like, okay, I heard the thought, let it go. Okay, said I didn't like that. Okay, let it go. The more quiet and clear you get, the answer is there. Again, that's why Krishnamurti said, all decision is the sign of a confused mind. So I'll wrap it up with a quick story. At Zen Mountain Monastery, where I used to live, before I had gotten there, they had just bought the monastery itself, and it was bitterly cold in the Catskills. They had no money for heat. They didn't know how they were going to pay the mortgage or anything. And the abbot, John Dido Laurie, who's a very wise being, he said, just sit, because that's what you do at a monastery, right? Just in a Zen monastery, just sit and meditate. All right, just sit, zazen. So he just kept encouraging the monks to just sit. I know we don't know how we're going to pay the bills and how we're going to warm this place, but just sit. And then as everybody kept getting quiet, they start getting really brilliant ideas. And I don't know the exact way the story unfolded, but they're like, wow, we could just open a bakery down the street, or, in the other city down the way. They opened a bakery and made plenty of money. They bought the monastery. Now it's totally paid for, and it's a thriving spiritual center. But it started with confusion, where they didn't know how it was going to work out. So just get quiet and sit. And when you're quiet, you can start looking for signs. Some of you might be interested in a book called God is My Broker. It's about a monk who had left the monastery. No, he was a stock trader, a Wall Street stock trader. And he left that life and he went to live in a monastery. The monastery was in financial ruin. They had very little money left. And the abbot of the monastery said to him, can you do something with this money? He's like, well, I guess I can go to Wall Street and, turn it into some more money. And that's the plan they decided to go on. He said, and the abbot said, well, just trust in God. Listen to God as you're going to Wall Street to go trade this money or whatever he did. Just be open for signs. And he was sitting in the airport or something, and something came up about apples. And it just got this apples. And this is like before Apple was Apple. And then he's like, oh, okay, I guess I should buy Apple stock or something. And then they like quadrupled their money or whatever. And then they did it like 3 times over and made so much money that they never had a financial issue again, as the story goes, because he learned to listen for those signs. When we're really clear, we realize Spirit is speaking to us at every moment. We just have to get out of our own way. All right, so I believe that brings us to the end of the PowerPoint. Any questions you're sharing? Anything anybody would like to discuss before I wrap it up for tonight? All right, again, this is a reminder that we have the Life Mastery Course workshop coming up. You can check it out at instituteofhypnotherapy.com. Once you have that process done, it's a pretty elaborate process we go through, then decision-making actually becomes extremely easy. So I invite everybody to join us for that. Our next hypnotherapy training begins September 29th, I believe, and then again in January of 2023. So thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you for our upcoming classes. We'll be here for the next couple of weeks, and then in August, all the Monday night classes will be dedicated to A Course in Miracles. So thank you, everybody. I hope to see you there.